Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, I'm doing a story here about Hamza Yousaf and his rank stupidity. That's not unusual. A lot of the stories I do about Hamza Yousaf are about his rank stupidity. But Hamza Yousaf, for me, is a source of unending astonishment. And this particular form of astonishment is, even with his past record, I'm actually astonished at how stupid the man can be. He's said something which, on a scale of 1 to dumb, is about a 14. It belies an understanding of even basic mathematics. The man is an absolute moron. In the light of Suella Braverman being fired, of David Cameron being appointed to the House of Lords and coming back into government, I'm not dealing with them. They're other videos. But the moron in chief of Scotland has said that he demands a general election now. I will be honest, and I will say, absolutely, the man has finally got something right. Let's have a general election now. Because it is the quickest way of getting rid of the SNP. The man has no understanding of how badly he's doing in the polls. Let's have a look at this and just laugh at this moron. Here goes. Now, I'm pretty sure that he can just about read. I'm sure he's got to Janet and John book 3 or whatever it would be. So surely he will have looked at the polls and realised how appallingly badly the SNP is doing in them. He certainly will have seen the Rutherglen election. He will have seen every council election go the other way, whichever way it was. It doesn't matter. It certainly wasn't SNP victories. He has never had an SNP victory in an election. And yet he wants to call a general election. The man is a moron. Now, we all want it. We all want a general election because you'll end up with maybe 6 SNP seats. And possibly even fewer with a bit of tactical voting. Now, the headline here says it's going to lose half the seats. It could lose a lot more. It could lose a lot more. And it is one of those things where, being Hamza Yousaf, you're saying these things because you think they sound great, but you just don't understand the situation you're in. If there was an election, and if the SNP did as badly as we all expect them to do, the SNP would not be getting all that parliamentary money. Parliamentary money they are in desperate need of. Without that money, the party could go bankrupt. And yet he's calling for a general election. What an absolute room temperature IQ. And I mean single digits. It's a cold room, isn't it? Hamza Yousaf calls for general election now, despite SNP being on track to lose half their MPs, and probably way more. A little bit of tactical voting can almost wipe them out entirely. The First Minister was mocked. No shit. After calling for Rishi Sunak to hold a snap at Westminster election amid the sacking of Suella Braverman, even though this could lead him to losing more than half of his SNP MPs. Hamza Yousaf has been mocked, for calling this vote. He said, but this could prove to be potentially the end of his reign as SNP leader, as the latest polling shows that nationalists are likely to lose more than 20 of their representatives. Electoral calculus has the SNP on 21 seats, down from the 43 they have currently. And like I say, with a bit of tactical voting, it can actually be a lot worse than that. However, it wouldn't just be the end of Hamza Yousaf as the leader of the SNP. It could potentially be the end of the SNP. I love this man. This man is joyous. He launches 1,000 YouTube videos every day because every day he opens his mouth. All that stupid pours out unfiltered. It's almost as though he hasn't got a brain in his head. He is the best thing that could ever happen to the SNP. He truly is, isn't he? Originally, 48 SMPs were elected in 2019, but the party has been riddled with issues, with 2 defecting to Labour, Kenny McCaskill, Neil Hanvey, 1 making a shock move to the Tories, Dr Lisa Cameron, Angus MacNeil being expelled, and Margaret Ferrier getting the boot by her constituents after breaking COVID laws. It's not been good. It is increasingly likely that they could lose the majority of the way this is going. No wonder he's calling for an election on the thought that, hey, we can go back in and win and prove how strong we are, because in his mind he sees the SNP as being strong. Boy, has he got a lot to learn. A heavy defeat for Mr Yousaf at the next general election will mean he will be under increasing pressure after an awful start to life as First Minister. Well, that's fair enough. He had an awful start in health, in justice, I mean, you name it. He's transport. He's failed at everything he's done. Why not fail at First Minister? Anyway, he's already overseen an absolute thrashing in Rutherglen and Hamilton West, and he's yet to experience a by-election win. I mentioned that at the top. Now, I love this when I've got to keep saying it because it's just so funny. Curtis on the election night for Rutherglen said, well, if Labour get a 7% swing, they'll win the seat. No, 5% swing would win the seat. A 7% swing would be a good result. He said, and a 10% swing, they would be elated. And then it was a 20.7% swing or something immense like that. I mean, after the thing, you got Jackie Bailey sitting there, and who was it? Keith Brown was sitting next to her, and Keith Brown had a face like he's just shat his pants, and Jackie Bailey's smile was off the mere confines of her face. It was over here somewhere, like Cheshire Cat. You just expected her to slowly disappear and just leave the grin the way it was. Stunning result for Labour, but we all enjoyed, even if you're not a Labour supporter, you must have enjoyed the result because it just showed the SNP up for the disgusting people they are, that even their own side won't vote for them anymore. Anyway, despite all these glaring issues and the fact that he's got the IQ of a mop, he still called for a snap general election to be called. On social media, he wrote, "At a time when we need those in government to bring communities together, she revelled in fanning the flames of division. The Tories are out of ideas and out of time, and there should be a general election now." If you take the word Tories and put the word SNP in there, it's still an accurate statement. Anyway, his comments were mocked as critics pointed out that he'd be in a very rocky position if a Westminster vote was held soon. Currently, it looks like Mr Sunak will call one next autumn or even as soon as May 2024. I think it's likely to be autumn now to give time for the running. However, if Sunak is going to go, he may decide scorched earth, call an early one and basically say, "Oh, screw it, I'm out of here. I'm going to take my untaxed billion and piss off to America," and let the Tory party burn. Don't care no more. Then he'd call it in May, basically. So he's done anyway. He's finished as leader. It could be, this week when the number of nominations goes in. They have a leadership contest because they need to have it early to give a new leader time to embed. I don't think whoever it is, even if they got Boris back, because Boris is just a wanker now with everything that's coming out. But it doesn't matter who takes over. They can't stop Labour winning the next election. It's can they reduce the majority? That's the only option they have. Anyway, Scottish Tory MSP Stephen Kerr wrote, "Good of you to comment on this story. Any updates on support for those affected by Storm Babette?" Scottish Daily Express, because there hasn't been. Angus has basically been left to fend for itself, hasn't it? No, was it Angus or Argyle, whatever. Wherever it was that was really badly hit. Anyway, it's left to fend for itself. And it was just appalling. And they just basically did nothing for these people. Sort of went up there, made comments, "Oh, this is terrible, we'll do everything we can," and then fucked off and didn't do a thing. Daily Express columnist Louis McCletchy said, "Politicians who brought in hate speech legislation appears to smear, criminalise and imprison the people who he says he disapproves of. Criticises politician who asks police to treat those on all sides of the row with even-handedness." Yeah, hypocritical much? But of course, when he brings in hate speech, he doesn't mean hate speech for everyone. He means hate speech against a certain group, and a certain group only. Pro-indie blogger Wings Over Scotland was also critical of the First Minister. I mean, it's easy, isn't it? It's so easy. He said the SNP are going to be humiliated at the next UK election and quite possibly bankrupted if they have to fight it soon. So plainly he doesn't actually want one. So he's deliberately and needlessly saying something that even by politician standards everyone knows is a particularly egregious and crass lie. It's not even a lie. He hasn't. It's just that he's so stupid. I would love Richie Sunak to call it now. Say, I'll call you. You're right. You're right, Hamza Yousaf. Let's have that vote now. It's going to be a Labour victory at any point anyway. Let's have it now. Let's get it done, dusted, and out the way, and then let's watch Hamza Yousaf's face crumble and say, "Yeah, it was your idea. We'll do it. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Hamza. I'm going to go to the polls. Good idea." And he knows, not only is he finished, the SNP's finished. Independence in Scotland is finished. The man is a moron. You can't get over how stupid he is. This is what I'm saying. It's jaw-dropping, really, isn't it? Latest polling has Scottish Labour actually winning the election in Scotland, hitting a high of 25 MPs, a huge increase on the 2 that they currently have. And they're expected to almost completely wipe out the Nats in the Central Belt and in Glasgow, which would spin Mr Yousaf's leadership into crisis. Indeed, his seat would be one to go, so he wouldn't actually be leader anymore. It would also be a killer blow to the SNP's Skexit hopes, which are pinned on the party winning the next general election to request a chance to break up the UK. And they ain't going to win that. And there's several seats which are SNP held, but where Tories are incumbent, strangely, in Scotland, and will likely take the seat from them. Bad, isn't it? Anyway, I'm going to round off and come up because it's just a delicious story where a moron calls for the one thing he really, really doesn't want. See you in a minute. The man hasn't got the IQ of a dish mop, has he? He is absolutely so stupid. And yet, if an election was called, he knows he's finished. And he isn't just finished as leader. He's finished as a politician. He wouldn't get in. The votes would be so small that they could lose. I mean, the figures were, I believe, now they banding around that they could lose 20 seats, but given the sort of 20% swing that we've seen, that could get them down even further. And the tactical voting is tiny, a tiny little bit of tactical voting. Tories just voting Labour, some Labour's just voting Tory in other areas. Not because they want to vote for that person, but they want to vote against the SNP. And it would get the SNP out. And it would just be delicious to see. Now, they've done the calculations. It would only take about 5% swing, Labour to Tory, Tory to Labour, in the appropriate seats. And the SNP could be down as low as 6 MPs in Westminster. Their money coming from the central funding for the parties that comes out of that would be slashed to the bare minimum. And of course, they've still got vehicles to run, rents to pay on various buildings. They've got staff salaries to pay, all this. Bang. They're done. They're done. They're bankrupted almost immediately after the next general election because they're not getting any corporate sponsorship because nobody wants to assign themselves to potential criminality. Especially now when it looks like Matheson may be very, very dodgy. That isn't going to help the case either. Anyway, I should finish there. Thank you very much for watching. It is a beautiful story, isn't it? A man who the last thing he actually wants is a general election, calling for a general election. What a knob. Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and I shall speak to you later. Bye.